Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the next session, please welcome to the stage Mr. Salil Pitroda.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Awesome, thank you for coming here. Today we are talking about two very exciting growth companies. We'll be focusing on the founders' journeys and their path to scaling and some of the highs and lows. My name is Salil Pitroda, I'll be your moderator today. I run a firm called Trinity Capital. We advise and invest in growing companies. In a prior life, I was a venture capital and private equity investor, and then I had my own startup that was a mobile payments company that was acquired by MasterCard. So we have about 20 minutes today. We'll keep it brief, and hopefully it'll be some high-value content. With that said, let me call out David and Bryan, who are our two panelists today. Fantastic. So to set the context, what I thought we'd do is get each of these gentlemen to talk a little bit about themselves and their companies to set the stage, and then we'll go into some of their growth path. David, please go ahead.
Sure. My name is David DeWolf. I'm the founder and CEO of 3Pillar Global. At 3Pillar, we build digital software products. We do that specifically for media, information, and technology companies, working with companies like PBS. We build all of PBS's digital media products that you may have seen and watched some of their great content on, helping companies like Carfax to innovate and bring new products to market. And typically, this is all evolving around the monetization of information, content, and data. How do you get it into the hands of a consumer so that you can compete in this new digital age?
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Bryan, tell us about Liqid.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Bryan. I am one of the co-founders and COO of Liqid. Liqid is a software company that delivers composable infrastructure. What this means is that we allow users to build physical servers in seconds through our software. So this is done through a PCIe-based fabric, something that we manage and build ourselves. And we work with companies like Dell, Inspur, Uber, Netflix, NBC, a whole host of government agencies and whatnot to bring dynamic infrastructure to their workloads so they can have the right size server and server cluster for any size workload they have going on at that moment.
Fantastic. And first of all, let me congratulate both of you. Both built great companies of scale already, and I know how hard it is, so it's awesome that you guys are up here. Great. David, let me start. I think what would be great is just give us a few minutes on kind of your growth journey, and then We'll dig into some of the specific functional elements later, but tell us about your path.
Yeah. Well, I think you started off with the theme, right? A lot of hard work, but also a lot of fun. And along the way, there are inflection points that you have to go through. You know, for us, started off, I was actually an independent consultant. I thought I was going to be writing code the rest of my career. And I woke up about 2 years into that journey, and I had 6 people working for me. And I said, oh my goodness, I've got to figure out how to run a business. And I was still writing code 80 hours a week, you know. And for me, it goes back to listening to the customer. And I stepped back from that and said, what is it that has caused us to grow without even trying? And found a niche in the market of building software products is fundamentally different than other types of software. In this IT world, it's all about risk mitigation versus taking appropriate risks and actually finding that product market fit. And I had built a name for doing that. And so listening to the market, decided that as this digital economy is emerging, wanted to get into that space and really capitalize on that opportunity. And so I think that's one of the first lessons I've learned about growth is really the importance of listening to your customer, listening to the needs of the market, and having the vision to be able to drive to that place. So, you know, you fast forward from that point in time, realizing I had 6 people, we now have 1,000 employees throughout the world, and it's been a continual journey of navigating the company along the way.
Absolutely. And just to dig down on that a little bit, help me understand some of the key areas you've really focused on in terms of opportunities to scale the company.
Yeah. So I think the first one, opportunity of seeing the emergence of this digital economy and how much it is transforming the way we live, work, and play. And so one of the very first ones that we really capitalized on is we founded the company actually supporting technology companies that were typically venture-backed, and really capitalized on that at the onset of this digital economy built a reputation there, but then realized very quickly that the future of this digital economy is not about just technology companies. It's about the enterprises that have tons and tons of data, are becoming software companies, but don't know how to be software companies. And so we capitalized on that by seeing it before it came and getting ahead of it and starting to build, hey, these companies, they don't know how to be software companies. So not only they need help accelerating their products to market, they also need help figuring out even what to do. How do you act as a software company? So that's one of the things that we're very unique and different in. We don't just provide the engineering like a lot of product engineering firms do. We provide the full integrated stack of consulting on how do you build up a digital organization? What is your product strategy? What's your product management user experience? And integrating that full stack all the way together. And that has really resonated within the enterprise, helping them become software companies overnight.
That's great color, thank you. Bryan, tell us about your growth path in the journey.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that. I think I'd echo a lot of what David has said. In order for any, this is very cliche, right? But for any company to navigate the waters of growth and the startup world, the voice of the customer is key. And I think one of the key things that we've tried to focus on as best as we can, not perfect, but one thing we've tried to focus on as best we can, is early customer engagement, even during the development cycle of our product and technology. And that's not always easy because you're asking for people to take a little bit of a risk on you when your product's not fully baked. But that has proven incredibly valuable to us, our investors, our partners, to make sure that our product market fit is of key and on point. And the reason I bring that up, Salil, is because that has allowed us, I think, to manage our capital as effectively as we can and make sure that we are not wasting investors' dollars. We're a venture-backed company. And so we're trying to make sure we nail the product market fit as effectively and as efficiently as possible so we utilize that capital as effectively as possible. So in that event, our growth path, we've been around for about 5 years, coming up this July, and we have been continuously engaged with customers. That's led to some early sales. We actually launched our product in March of this year. And so that's not to say we haven't been engaged with customers only for a month and a half, but rather for a few years. And so for them to migrate to our product and pick up some of the opportunities with us from an adoption perspective has been really good. So for us, it's been a product market fit play and trying to make sure that we're engaged with the customers and utilize that capital so that you have that foundation for product that allows the revenue to grow.
That makes a lot of sense. Customers never lie, right?
They may not know what they want, but they never lie.
They never lie. Exactly. So we'll come back to the financing piece later, but I wanted to just dig down a little bit more. David, again, what's been hard? What has been difficult? What was different from expectation? And what have you done to kind of, sort of scale successfully?
When I look at the hardest points of the growth path, and there are certain inflection points, and I think going through these inflection points are really, really hard. Right? I think of, for me, it was the 10 million, the 25 million. We're going through the 50 million inflection point right now. And you have to really burst through those, and you have to be willing to reinvent yourself. Right? In this innovative product development space, we're always talking about disrupting and disrupt yourself. I think you have to be able to do that operationally as well, because the systems, the processes, even to some degree the culture that you establish shifts and changes along the way. And oftentimes companies outgrow people, but they also outgrow these systems, and navigating through that and making sure that you're doing the right thing by the people that are in the trenches with you building these companies, but at the same time have your eyes open to, you know what, things have changed, and we're now at a scale where things have to be taken to the next level. To me, those inflection points are the hardest things, because they not only require the intellectual capacity of realizing them and figuring out what needs to change, but also the hard emotional part of separating yourself from those friends that helped you get it started and you outgrew, right? And you really build these strong relationships, and you've got to have the fortitude to push through that, treat people respectfully, but also move to the next level.
To tell me a little bit more about that, how do you build a culture and a team that sort of is focused on executing, but also can maintain that perspective of getting to the next level?
Yeah, I think one of the keys that you said is team.
Yeah.
And I think this is so hard, especially for entrepreneurs that are here. For many of us entrepreneurs, we started off doing everything. right? And we were responsible for the production and then the management and the sales, and everything. And how, as an entrepreneur, do you learn to delegate and back up and allow the team to do things? And there are a couple secrets I've learned. Number one is always hire people that are smarter than yourself, right? And it's cliche, but it's really hard to do, right? So many of us, struggle to do that because it means you're going to be challenged. And so, to me, the fundamental aspect of team is building trust amongst the people that you surround yourself. How are you, as the entrepreneur, as the CEO, able to be vulnerable and put yourself out there and say, I don't know this, I need help, or I was wrong, I made the wrong decision, right? We've all done that. Everybody knows, but to admit it builds that trust that allows that team to help you accelerate through those points and helps you see it before you may have by yourself.
Yes, very well said. Bryan, tell us about what's been hard, what's been difficult, what's been unexpected, and how you've handled it to scale successfully.
Yeah, thank you. I'll build a little bit on what David has said. I think the role of the executive team and founders of a company, I think, is to ensure that you have the right people in the right places, doing the right things at the right times. Very easy to say, very difficult to do, as you just pointed out. And we're at this point right now where we've done as much revenue in Q2 of this year, actually 4 times as much revenue in Q2 of this year as we did all of last year. So we're on a growth trajectory. And as David pointed out, oftentimes the product development systems that you have in place and kind of roles and responsibilities of people don't necessarily scale with that. So ensuring that you now change a mindset towards scale and growth is something that's a bit of a challenge. And there are members of your team that can adopt that new mindset and can take that with you and help you accelerate that, punch through those, those revenue targets. And there's some that are not. But that's not to mean that there is not a place for those people on your team. There's always these kind of rock stars that are the guiding, stable force in your product development, in your technology, and then you need to augment that team with people who can think about scale. So we're going through that phase right now. It's exciting. It's a little nerve-wracking. The one thing I'll add is we've been fortunate to have great investors and partners with us that have supported us in some of those rough decision-making time periods. So they recognize the need that we have to continue to hire incredible talent, like you mentioned, Dave, and to ensure that that's something that is the foundation for the team. So executive team, right people, right place, right, doing the right things at the right time, great partners and investors and customers that allow you, and they're patient to allow you to go through that growth trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come back to the investors, but just one more question, Bryan, is what do you look for in talent? When you're assessing whether someone's the right person for the right role, how do you think about that?
Yeah, this is like worth an entire conference on its own. And I know there's more books than we'll ever be able to read on this stuff. But in my short career, what I personally place a ton of value on, and we do this as an executive team, is just pure grit. Just, is that person willing to hustle and work? I don't care if their IQ is 3 points below or 5 points below the other candidate. I want somebody that we can work with them, we can teach them what they need to know, we can help them understand some of the basic fundamentals. There has to be some level of basic understanding on an engineering principle, for example, for our software engineers. But can they hustle? Are they willing just to work hard? Because the dynamics of the business change, and you're not always going to have a cookie cutter problem to solve. You got to hustle and figure out the solution. So.
Great.
The only thing I would add to that, I think the grit, I love, we call it hunger, right? The other aspect of that to me is humility of can you work in a team? Because I think brilliant jerks don't work, right? And that same thing goes for hungry jerks, right? If you can't work as a team, this is too hard to do by ourselves, right? We want to accomplish something that's greater than the sum of the parts. And to do that, you've got to be able to have people around the table that can truly be a team and work as teammates.
Yeah, we've all had experiences where that's not the case, so that's very well said. Just switching gears in the couple of minutes we have left, let's talk now, David, about your financing path, how you've raised capital to grow the company, who's on your board, and kind of some of the journeys and lessons learned.
Yeah, so in summary, we bootstrapped for about the first 3 years. We then brought in some angel capital that was from family offices. Very much the right move for us. I found them to be very supportive capital, long-term thinkers who had operating experience, which I've found incredibly valuable, to your point. For me, I would say one of the big lessons learned that I wish I was smart enough to figure it out on my own, but I was just unconsciously competent. At a very small stage before I brought any money in, I actually stood up a board of directors. And I had a lot of friends and people say, what are you doing? You still own 100% of the company. Why subject yourself to that? And my thought at the time was that I've never run a business before. I'm an engineer by trade. And if I can't convince 4 other people that I have hand chosen that my idea is a better one, I probably, for my own interest, should listen to them. Very naive thing, just thought, hey, this is a great way to get advice. Well, it turns out not only was it, but I learned to run a board very early on, and I brought on very professional board members. And then when I actually did raise my institutional capital, I already had that board in place. So instead of having this onslaught of professional board members and no experience managing that, I had the experience, but also a high-functioning board from the get-go. And I found that to be incredibly powerful and has helped me push through some of these inflection points.
Great, thank you. Bryan.
Yeah, so I think to build again on David, we were founded in 2013. Seed round of funding took us through 2017. 2017, we did a Series A round with institutional and strategic partners, and brought us up to about $25 million in funding to date. And I can't stress, I mentioned in my earlier comment, the value that quality investors bring to the table at the board level. When you have folks who have voting rights and have the ability to affect decisions at the company level, it's very helpful to have operating history with those people. And Liqid's just been very fortunate to have a strong board in that method.
Awesome, awesome. 1 minute each for each of the panelists. Any other key insights, takeaways, learnings for the audience from your journey?
You know, one thing that comes to mind, I think, especially when we're in groups like this, it's always so easy to look across and be like, man, Bryan, you've got it all put together, right? And I think
my wife would disagree.
Yeah, so would mine, by the way, and my kids. So much of this, I think we live in this world where we have to be the duck. We're paddling below water, but we don't let anybody show it.
Absolutely.
And to know that each and every one of us have had those times where we're, I remember several years ago being 16 hours away from missing payroll, right? Been there, right? The entrepreneur has that grit to get past it, get through it, and to figure it out along the way. But don't assume that every single one of us has everything figured out, right? And I think it's so easy to become intimidated by that when you're in groups like this. And I would just say, keep on going, because we've all experienced it in different challenges of our own.
I would echo that from my company. It's never like a smooth ride. It's always non-linear, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think thank you. I appreciate that. I think one of the key things too is don't be afraid to share the problems along with the successes with your team internally, but also with, in our case, our investors and our board of directors. They don't expect us to have all the answers all the time, but they do expect us to have thought about the problem and come together with a solution that might make sense and then bring it up. So just make sure you surround yourself with people smarter than you, and then be comfortable in sharing the challenges that you're facing and be open about it with people. I think, at least at the board level, we've been fortunate enough to have great investors and board members that have helped us as a management team get through funding challenges or whatever it may be.
This is fantastic. David, Bryan, thank you so much for all of your time and guidance. Congratulations on the great successes you guys have built.
Thanks.
Thank you, Salil.
A lot of fun.
Thank you, everybody.